right, welcome to episode 155 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. We're back this week. Had nothing going on last weekend, didn't release an episode, so I hope you didn't miss me too much. But if I'm being real, I'm sure no one even noticed that there wasn't an episode last week. But nonetheless, back this week for 155, and this is going to be an Orioles episode. Just giving you a heads up right now. I got nothing really to say about the Ravens. Look, OTAs started. They're in the midst of that. They got a lot of players that have reported, not a lot of people that are, holding out or not showing up. That's good to see. But other than that, it's really business as usual. There's only a couple little tidbits here and there, and unless they develop into a bigger story, we'll address them then. But for this week, I wanted to stick to the Orioles because, look, didn't do an episode last week. We know what happened with the 14-game losing streak. They finally snap it, but the losing streak was rough. That goes without saying. 14 games in a row. There's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to say, hey, no, these games were, enjoyable to watch. You should watch again tomorrow night. If you checked out after 7 or 8 in a row, I don't blame you. If you stuck around through all 14, kudos to you as well. I mean, it's just there's no way to. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, there's a lot of good things happening here at the Major League Club. You should keep watching. I've long been saying this during the rebuild when I hear dissatisfaction, which, I should say that is kind of the theme of today's episode: dissatisfaction with the present. Also dissatisfaction with the future that I'm seeing from some people throughout the fan base. I've been saying this the past couple of years since we've fully committed to being a bad team, rebuilding, whatever terminology you want to use. I've said, if watching this team, the Orioles, the Major League Club, causes you that much anguish, that much dissatisfaction, disgust, stress. I don't know. I hear from working at the Fan, I hear the voices. This isn't through text. These are not social media posts. But to hear the voices. And you can hear during this losing streak the stress, the strain in some of these voices. And I'm thinking, damn, I'm a huge fan. I just watched them lose 10, 11, 12 in a row. And my reaction is, that sucks. This is getting embarrassing. But I'm not losing sleep over this. I'm not stressed out. And it really kind of hits home just how much the Orioles mean to people. And, I think that's a good thing when somebody calls in, even if they have the most ridiculous take in the world. If they're passionate about it, if they have energy behind what they're saying, you can at least say, hey, they care. And the fact that the Orioles have people that care that much about them right now, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. But I've always been saying this, man, if you're that worked up and bent out of shape about the Orioles right now, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but don't watch them. Or don't watch them every day. Find something else to do. Maybe watch, I don't know, if the NBA playoffs are on, watch that. Hockey playoffs, watch that. Watch a different baseball game. I'd just take a break. Take a step away. Maybe take if it's a Friday, Saturday, weekend night or something, head out to one of the minor league affiliates. Watch them play live. Probably going to see a win, first and foremost. You're going to see some better baseball. And you're going to see the future of the Orioles. If you're watching this team night in and night out, you're going to hit a point where it's probably going to make you mad. It's going to depress you. And I said, I give people credit that watch in and night out, but I don't know. You hear the voices of these people and they sound so distressed and just fed up and done. And I say, hey, you don't have to watch every day. You're not any lesser of a fan. I don't know. It just feels like they're doing some serious damage to their psyche by watching the Orioles lose 14 in a row. And I guess I should say as well, these comments, these stressed comments usually come from a place of, well, I don't know how much longer I can be a fan if they're going to keep this up. Dude, if that's your takeaway, take a step back. Don't watch tomorrow night. Watch something else. Clear your mind. No one's forcing you, holding a gun to your head, watching the Orioles play 162 games because, quite frankly, that might, qualify as torture in Guantanamo. But that's just what I'm getting at here is there's a lot of growing dissatisfaction, a lot of growing discontent, and a 14-game losing streak will do that. Absolutely, it'll do that. And beyond that, losing 21 out of 23, since John Means threw that no-hitter on Cinco de Mayo, they dropped 21 out of 23 games after that. That'll do it. I mean, the month of May was just brutal. Beyond the 14 games in a row that they lost. Overall, they were just awful. A terrible team in the month of May. So, I get it. It's tough to watch. But if you're basing your opinions off of, or basing your opinions on the future, where this team is heading off of the results you're seeing from the Baltimore Orioles in 2021, you're not looking in the right place. I'm not going to use harsh terminology, at least yet. I'm not going to say you're an idiot. I'm not going to say anything like that because you're clearly a passionate fan if you're watching every night. But if you're concerning yourself with the win-loss record of the major league club, you're not looking in the right spot. And you're not really getting the full picture at the very least. In my opinion, the win-loss record of the major league club means next to nothing. But if you want to factor that in, I'm not going to deny you that. But at the very least, you're ignoring the entire picture, which is the performance of the minors, some of your bigger name prospects rising through the ranks, the draft that'll be coming up this summer, stuff like that, potential trades. Those are the things that are going to happen in 2021, the draft, the trade deadline, and then just the minor league season in general. That's where your attention should be directed right now if you want to get a sense of where this club is heading. Because if you want to just tune into the Orioles on a nightly basis, and look, they're on a 3-game win streak right now. You should mention that. They've been playing some really good baseball lately, but let's just say you tune in on an average night, they lose the game, and it's not a particularly good one. It's pretty ugly, and there's a lot of blame to go around. If that's telling you that this team's not heading in the right direction, I don't know what else to tell you. But this dissatisfaction, this anger, this frustration, it's only natural and it continues to grow. And as people look to the future, because again, we're 2.5 years into this rebuild. We are. Mike Elias took over to start 2019. In our lives, in the average person's lives, 2 years is a long time. In the sports world, time moves differently. In terms of a rebuild, 2 years is not that long. Also, you really can't compare the Orioles situation to any of the other recent teams to rebuild. Maybe you can draw some parallels. I know a lot of people have been trying to draw connections between the Orioles and the Astros rebuild. It's only natural. They were one of the most recent to rebuild. They were one of the most recent to have extreme success through a rebuild, resulting in World Series trips and a victory. And above all that, Mike Elias came from Houston. So again, all of those comparisons are only natural, but the Orioles situation is unique to them. The position they were in as a club, as a franchise, was so poor in the year 2018 with no planning to the future. All the trades, all the moves they made in the year 2018, from trading Machado to Britton, Gausman, Scope, all of those were just out of pure desperation. Not one of those moves was done with significant foresight. Every single one of those moves was a panic. Oh my God, we suck. All of these guys have expiring contracts or maybe 1 year left of service time. Let's dump them and actually get something. And when that's the case, you're not going to get that good of a return. And then to start 2019, you got a whole new front office. That front office steps in and says this team just made 4 midseason trades a couple months ago that maybe I would have signed off on none of them. Maybe the return. Maybe I don't like a single player that they got in return. Mike Elias, he'll never say it, and maybe he realistically probably liked a couple of the players. But when he stepped in and saw the team that he's dealing with, he's probably like, oh my God, I wouldn't have made that move. What the hell were they thinking? Why'd they get this player? Why didn't they go after that player? Why would they trade this player? It just seemed, it's such a frustrating situation. Oh, hey, by the way, you got this Chris Davis contract looming over you. Our minor league system is an absolute joke. Everyone at every single level is teaching different things. And above all of that, the team's just bad. The team's bad. And when a new regime has to step in, he stripped the entire organization. He stripped the front office. He stripped the coaching staff. Hired Brandon Hyde. He hires his staff. The front office gets filled out with Mike Elias people. This is truly a bare bones stripping this down to the foundation and rebuilding. There is barely anything pre-existing in the organization that they were able to use and latch onto. And that's why you saw in 2019, and if they played a full season last year, you would have saw the same thing, just a really, really bad team. I'm not going to get on Mike Elias's case. I'm not going to sit here and say that Mike Elias is doing a poor job or that he's not going to actually see this rebuild through. I don't understand that perspective. I really don't. If you're frustrated with the team, the major league club losing games, I get it. We all don't want to see losses. But to say that is an indication of where this team is heading in 2022, 23, and beyond is ridiculous. And if you actually looked at what's going on in the minors, all the other stuff that's going on with this team, I don't know how you can be at a minimum content. Most people that have a serious in-depth knowledge of what's going on with this team beyond a surface level reading of box scores or just watching the Major League Club are very happy with what Mike Elias is doing and the direction this team is going. But like I said, at the very least, you should be content. I'm not saying you have to have glowing praise for what's going on, but I think if you know and we're seeing everything that's going on and you have the full picture, you would at least be content and say, all right, I'm okay. I'm not panicking. I'm not upset. We'll see this through. But for the most part, people are really, really excited, and I'm with them. I think you have a lot of right to be. Look at what he inherited. Right now, in just 2 years, look at all the changes that he's made. He himself has drafted a crop of widely praised talent. He's had some really premium picks to do it with. Number 1 overall takes Adley Rutschman. Number 2 or 3 overall last year, Heston Kjerstad is his pick. Both of those are widely praised picks. They have 5 top 100 prospects in the MLB.com rankings, as well as Baseball America's rankings. I'm looking at MLB.com's right now. Adley Rutschman, number 2 overall prospect in baseball. Grayson Rodriguez, not a Mike Elias pick, but he's number 21 overall. And he's been rapidly rising, and his stock has been rapidly rising since when? Since Mike Elias took over and the new regime stepped in and they implemented their analytics-based system, and their new coaching staff on the minor leagues. They're a coaching staff that has a universal philosophy from low A ball to the major leagues. Every step of the way, you're going to be taught the same things. It's the natural progression from low A to the majors is going to be, to use Mike Elias's terminology, a pipeline. It's going to be a smooth transition. When you climb through the ranks, it's a natural progression of things. You pick up on what you've already learned. We reinforce what you've already learned, and we build on it. What was happening before is you just had a system where you hire all these coaches and they teach you what they think is the right thing is in their coaching expertise. And certainly that's part of being a coach. But for a minor league system of a major league club, you have to have an overarching philosophy that covers every single team in your system. You have to have some uniformity, and that's what the Orioles finally have. And it's no surprise that some of these talented prospects and maybe some prospects that weren't on the radar prior to Mike Elias being here are now shining because they've been provided with proper resources in the minor leagues to succeed. I think Grayson Rodriguez, look, him, another name I'm going to mention here in a second, DL Hall, they were both going to reach the majors no matter what. They're just that talented. But the steps that they've taken, the advancements they've taken since 2019 are extremely encouraging. So DL Hall, he's at 56. Right in front of him, Heston Kjerstad, a Mike Elias pick at 55 overall in the entire league. And then rounding out these 5 players in the top 100 at 96 is Gunnar Henderson, shortstop, taken out of high school. Very, very, very young kid. He is tearing it up this year. He is absolutely scorching hot. So there's your 5 players. That's MLB.com's rankings. I believe you have the same names for Baseball America, maybe some different numbers next to those names. But 5 players in your system that rank in the top 100 of the entire league. Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall. Those are 3 big names you can expect to see by 2022 or 2023. That's huge. I mean, that's 2 pitchers that are going to probably be in your starting rotation. That's your starting everyday catcher that's probably going to hit in the middle of your lineup and be a straw that stirs the drink, so to speak. And hopefully not far behind is an outfielder in Kjerstad and Gunnar Henderson, a real legit major league shortstop. A lot to like, a lot of heralded prospects. So 3 of those top 5 are Mike Elias picks. 2 were picked in 2017 or 2018, right before Elias stepped in. So under his tutelage, under his system that he's created, they have thrived. I think that cannot go without saying. You know, look, hey, the previous regime, they gave us Ryan Mountcastle. That's great. You know, they made the trade to get Dean Kramer. They got Keegan Aiken in here, Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, some guys that are seeing some success here at the major league level. Trey Mancini, how could I forget that? Beyond that, the international market. The Orioles are actually spending money on international amateur free agents. You know, when you look around baseball and see some of the biggest names in the game, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto, guess where all those guys came from? They were all international amateur signings. The teams that signed them got them for maybe $1 million at most in international money. A lot of them in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, come on. Look around the league. Look at not only those are the best players, but the rest of the league is just littered with these guys that come from the international market. How about players that come from Japan? Shohei Ohtani stands out. So to actually have the willingness to spend that money that is allotted to you, you are allotted a certain amount of money for international signings. This money is set aside. It's not from the main pool of money. You have this separate crop, this separate stockpile of money designated for international signings. And what did the Orioles do with that in the past? They took that and they bundled that in trades. They sent that with other talented prospects and then got rentals in return for a season that they ultimately lost. I think they probably sent some international money with Scope, Britton, Gausman, maybe even Manny. They sprinkled that on everything. They used it like salt. They were seasoning every single trade with international money. So, we're not going to use it. Take it. Treating it like a gift card that's got a couple bucks left on it, just throwing it to a friend or a homeless person. I mean, my God, have some foresight. It's absolutely ridiculous. So now, not only is Elias using that money, thank God, but they just built this whole state-of-the-art facility, which, by the way, they're one of the last teams to actually have a nice quality facility in the Dominican Republic for the growth of some of these, or majority of these international signings, the development of these international players, or just a means of scouting, a better means of scouting these international players, to have a state-of-the-art facility down there that makes all the difference. That's underway. That's under construction. That's going to put this team in the 21st century, finally. Hey, I said it before. When Mike Elias got here, they exposed some weaknesses in this system, in this club, that even hardcore fans didn't know existed. So this has never been just a black and white, cut and dry situation. I myself am satisfied with where things are going. I know I can't sit here and tell you the year that they're going to be competing for a playoff spot again. I can't look into my crystal ball and tell you that, but I have the confidence that it's going to be here in the next 2 to 3 years. And I alluded to this earlier, as far as things that you can look at in 2021 that give you a sense of where things are going. Because again, the record of the Orioles in 2021, that's just not going to give you the full picture or really any sort of idea of what's going on. We talked about what's going on in the minors, but what's something else that could happen this year that would significantly impact the direction of this team, the future of this team? Well, the trade deadline. And since Mike Elias has been here, the Orioles have been shipping out quite a few players at the trade deadline the last 2 years. Even last year in a shortened season, they were able to make a good handful of trades. They've made some trades in the offseason. So I think on a surface level, a lot of people would expect that to be the same again in 2021, but I would say not so fast. Look at all the names that they traded the past couple of years. A lot of relievers like Michael Givens. Who else? Miguel Castro got shipped out. You had Tommy Malone as a starter got traded last year. Year prior, it was Andrew Kashner as a starter got traded. Off-season, they got rid of Alex Cobb. Dylan Bundy got shipped out at some point. All of these guys had maybe a year left on their contract at most, and pretty much most of them that was it. They were on expiring contracts. They didn't have a ton of value. In the case of the relievers, maybe they put together a halfway decent season like Michael Givens or Castro, found themselves some trade value on the market. Look, teams are always clamoring for relievers and starters at the trade deadline. And you ship them out, you get a couple prospects in return, or in the case of Andrew Kashner or Tommy Malone, you sign this stopgap starter, somebody that you can plug into your rotation that's is going to eat innings. They end up performing better than you could have expected, so you trade them. I mean, there's no point in holding on to them. I mean, hey, at best case scenario, they keep up what they're doing for the rest of the year and you get some good innings out of them, but you're not trying to make the playoffs. You're not trying to win here. So, yeah, get rid of Tommy Malone when he was at his peak. And look what happened after they traded him to Atlanta. He was terrible. He was the journeyman Tommy Malone that I thought the Orioles were going to get in the first place. So those are kind of all the names that they've dealt. They're just kind of cleaning things out. Guys that you're not going to give another contract to, you might as well ship them out, especially if they're performing really well. Now, the way the team looks in 2021, there's not a lot of those guys left. You have some guys that you signed to one-year deals this year that, yes, they are technically expiring contracts. Freddie Galvis, Michael Franco, those names come to mind. But I don't see either of those guys getting dealt. I mean, they're everyday players in this lineup. Freddie Galvis is having a pretty good season, best OPS of his career. He's on pace for, I think, the best WAR he's had in years. He's been producing. He's been producing pretty well. He's not super flashy, but he's playing every day. Some pretty good defense, and you're not gonna get rid of him. I just don't know if the return is worth it, losing him midseason, because you signed a guy like that really to hold things down and steer the ship in terms of that infield on defense. You wouldn't ship that guy out unless he was having a super, super hot season. Michael Franco not really performing all that well. He's had his moments, but he has no trade value, and I don't think you trade him anyway. You need a You need a third baseman. So he's here. The only one I can really think of is Matt Harvey. And the way things were going earlier this season, it was starting to look like we might have had another Tommy Milone situation on our hands where, hey, this guy figured it out for at least half the season. He's pitching pretty well. We know how desperate teams are for pitching, starting, and bullpen depth at the trade deadline. The way things were going earlier this year, I definitely could have seen a team saying, hey, give us Matt Harvey. Here's a couple prospects. And the Orioles probably would have done that in a heartbeat because, again, they're not going to sign Matt Harvey to anything beyond this year. They signed him on a minor league contract. He makes $1 million for making the major league club. I'm not giving him up on him yet, but I don't know what his market's going to be by the end of July when this trade deadline rolls around. So we'll see. But that could be a name that I think fits the bill of the trades Mike Elias has been making recently. And the only other guys that really have been brought up in trade discussion, serious or not serious from fans, are John Means and Trey Mancini. Now, it makes sense. Look, both of these guys are having fantastic seasons. On a surface level, their value is high, right? Their value is maybe as high as it'll ever be. That could be true. But it's certainly very high. Trey Mancini coming back from missing the 2021 season, he looks like he hasn't lost a step. He is performing just as well, if not better, in some areas than he was in 2019. Still leading the league in RBIs, I think, by the way. I mean, he's on pace for like 120, 125 this year. That's crazy. He's on pace for another 30 home run season. He is on fire. And John Means, look, we know what he's done, no hitter, but other than that, he's been dominant. He's in the Cy Young conversation thus far in the American League. And of these two guys, the one that I think is more likely to get dealt, it's Trey Mancini. Now, look, you want to talk about all the sentimental stuff and everything, I'm with you. I don't want to see Trey Mancini get traded. I think the Orioles should hold on to him. That's me. I understand the argument in trading him. He's 29 years old. You know, it's great that he's putting together this season in 2021 where it's a bounce back and he looks like he did in 2019. He's a free agent through next year. And it's finally getting to the point of, well, are you going to re-sign him? Because if that's not in the cards for Mike Elias, if that's not part of Elias's plans to sign Trey Mancini, and some people think that if that was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now. But I think there's other factors at play. Look, the whole cancer thing put everything on the back burner for a year. But we're in that zone. We're in that moment where you have to decide if you're not going to re-sign him, what's the use in just holding on to him? You might as well get something, right? I mean, it's not like this isn't Michael Givens either. This isn't Givens. This isn't Castro. You know, this isn't someone with fleeting value. It certainly isn't Tommy Milone. This is a guy who would seemingly catch a pretty good return. But I don't know if that return is as big as people think it should be. Look, with the Baltimore Orioles, Trey Mancini, we know the off the field, all that stuff, the value that he has to this team is very high. But outside of Baltimore, I don't know if there's another team that really values him the same way the Orioles do. When we're on the discussion of midseason trades, you know, your value is, what's the cliche? Your value is only what someone is willing to pay you. You're only worth what someone's willing to pay you. That's true. Who are buyers at the trade deadline? They are usually contenders or people that think they're contenders. And unless one of those contenders loses a first baseman or a corner outfielder to a season-ending injury, or doesn't really have a DH option that they're in love with every day, why would someone trade for Mancini? Like, where is the fit? Where does he fit in? What competing club doesn't have a corner outfielder or first baseman that Trey Mancini would step in and be an extreme upgrade? I haven't analyzed everyone's roster across the league, but the point I'm making is that he's not a fit for every team, and the amount of teams out there that he would be even a possibility of a fit for, I think you're only looking at a couple. So the market, it's not really there. And for a position player, it's different. Like we said, with pitchers, teams are so desperate for good pitching, and whether it's a bullpen arm or a starter, you can always make room. If you got a guy coming in, you can make room in your rotation. You can make room in your bullpen for a good reliever. You can make room in the rotation for a good starter when you trade at the deadline. Position players are different. You have to have a spot to plug them in, a defined spot. I think if Trey Mancini is going to be dealt, it would probably happen in the offseason when GMs, owners, they're looking at their roster, they're looking at their club with a different pair of eyes than they would midseason. There's a different set of circumstances. It's just probably a better likelihood that a guy like Trey Mancini gets dealt at the winter meetings or in the offseason at some point. But as I said, I'm in the camp of you keep him. And I'm in the camp of, look, you hold on to him for the rest of this year because I don't think a midseason trade is possible. You see how he finishes this year. You take that, you take 2019, and I think you sit him down and you say, hey, here's our offer. We really want you to stay here in Baltimore. I know when this team's good again, he's going to be in his early 30s. But to me, he's one of those guys that you're going to want around to be the leader of all these young guys coming up. But you got to have somebody here who's the defined leader, who was what Adam Jones was, Nick Markakis, what those guys meant to the franchise. Trey Mancini has reached what those guys had in a very short amount of time just because of the circumstances the team has been in. But that doesn't mean he's not a good leader. He's a great leader. He's a great clubhouse leader. I think between that, the production he gives you on the field, and just the drastic difference in value that he has in Baltimore versus the rest of the league, I think you make him an offer. Look, if he turns it down, if he wants a ton of money, so be it. We will never maybe truly know the full details of those conversations, but if I was Elias, I would make him an offer. I would make him a contract offer at the end of this year and try to retain him and make sure that he's here for when this team is competitive again. Now that leads us to John Means. Now I'll just come out and say it. I think there is no chance John Means gets traded at the deadline this year. I understand why his name has come up. He came out of nowhere. He was almost out of baseball a couple years ago. He gets a chance to start with the Orioles, seizes the opportunity, runs with it, makes the All-Star team in 2019, probably going to make the All-Star team again this year. Not saying he's going to win Cy Young, but he'll. I think it's a safe bet he'll get some votes for Cy Young at the end of this year. The track record is starting to grow with him. I understand why some people would say, hey, why not trade him? His value is extremely high. Who's to say he can keep this up? Personally, I think he is a staple of your rotation for years to come, and I think once a couple more years go by, he would be a candidate for you to offer a contract to. But as it stands right now, if you're saying this is as high as his value is going to get, maybe you're right. Take a look at the contract John Means is on. He is signed through 2024. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2025. So after this year, he has 3 full seasons left on his contract. And you're going to the trade deadline in 2021. This guy has 3.5 years remaining on his contract. That's a lot. That's a lot of value. If you're going to trade a starting pitcher, they might either be on an expiring contract or they'll have maybe a year left on there or 2. I tried to go back through the last couple years, take a look at some of the big name starters that got traded at the deadline. And one of the names that came to my memory most recently was Zach Greinke. The Diamondbacks traded him in 2019 at the deadline to the Houston Astros and received a king's ransom in return. Zack Greinke, tremendous track record. Fantastic pitcher. The Astros knew exactly what they were getting when they traded for Zack Greinke, but what they sent to the Diamondbacks in return was just an insane group of players. They cleaned out their minor league system. They cleaned out some of their top prospects and sent them to Arizona. And in addition to that, he had 2 full years remaining on his contract plus the rest of the season. He had 2.5 years left on his contract. But how about you, Darvish? Go back to what? Oh, boy, 2016, 17? He only had a year or two remaining on his rookie contract when he got traded from Texas to L.A. So, again, most of these guys that get traded, they don't have a lot of years left. And if they do, like in the case of Greinke, you got 2.5 years left of contract time. The return and the haul that they had to give up to get him was insane. So I'm not saying John Means is Zack Greinke, but the track record, like I said, it's growing. From 2019 to last year to this year, his stock has been doing nothing but go up. And then you throw in the fact that he has 3 full years left on his contract after this year. Yeah, I'm just going to be brutally honest. There isn't a team in Major League Baseball that has the resources to trade for John Means right now. There's no one that can get on the phone, call Mike Elias and say, we want John Means, here is our offer, and get nothing but a laughing response from Mike Elias. The years left on his contract are almost more valuable than how he's performing in the present. So I'm sorry. No chance John Means gets traded in 2021. He's here to stay for this year, and I think personally, and we'll see how the rest of the year goes. If he gets Cy Young votes at the end of the year, makes the All-Star team, all of that, you're going to have to start to think about in a couple years extending him, because he's your ace right now. I mean, he's your ace for the rotation, and hey, look, in a couple years, things could be different. He could be on the trade market. That'll do it for episode 155. Before I really wrap things up here, I wanted to say, hey, appreciate everyone for listening. As always, 155 is a very, very significant amount of episodes. That's never lost on me. If you're someone who's been listening since the very beginning, thank you. We appreciate that. It's just absolutely incredible to be doing this long and on a consistent basis. I know it didn't do something last week, but I don't know what the future holds for this podcast. To be honest, contemplated not doing it anymore. A lot of factors at play in that. I'm doing fine. Nothing. I'm good. Don't worry about me. But just between work and other stuff, it's becoming something that I'm thinking about maybe putting on a hiatus. So I don't know. I haven't made any concrete decisions. Last week just felt like a good week to take off. Maybe it won't be on as consistent of a basis. Maybe it won't be every week. We'll try to put out episodes when we can. We'll see. So I really appreciate everyone who listens, everyone who's spread the word and told people about the podcast or told them to listen and check it out. I really, really, really appreciate that. So that's it for episode 155. I'll talk to you down the road.